Hello everyone, welcome to Dead by Daylight Resident Evil chapter. Today we are making a killer tier list from most strongest to the most weakest killers in my own opinion in Dead by Daylight as of the 5.0 patch. So understand that I don't believe that any killer is too weak. I just believe that every killer is viable when played efficiently. However, some killers are just better at it than others. We are also making this list under the impression that the player controlling this specific killer is very good with this killer, maybe their main. They have a very good understanding of how their power works and knows how to use it very effectively and very efficiently against their opponents. So with all that being said, let's just dive right on into it. Here we go. Okay, we are starting with the S rank. Our first killer, the person we voted strongest, you guessed it, it's the nurse. Now, a lot of people like to put the spirit above her. Some people do, some people don't. I'll tell you why I put her ahead. Because she does not have some of the same limitations as the spirit. Okay, the spirit still has to phase around the map terrain. The nurse has none of that. She can go through whatever she wants. So, you know, a very safe pallet can still be deadly against a spirit, you know, because it's all about making a read. It's a 50-50 spot, whereas a nurse takes that percentage down a lot. So this one's an easy one for me. It's probably no surprise to any OG players out there. Nurse, #1 spot, hands down, best killer, always has been, probably always will be. We'll just see where it goes from there. Just absolutely incredible killer. So, as you can probably guess, we're going to move on to our second best killer in the game. And I probably already spoiled it, but you probably already knew, right? Boop, there she is. It's the spirit. So what's so good about the spirit is her unpredictability. You know, it's really, really hard to tell what she is doing or when she's doing it, or if she's even doing anything at all. And you have to react accordingly to information that you just do not get. So I am not under the impression that she has no counterplay, but I will admit that she has very minimal counterplay. There's a lot of things you can do against the spirit. You know, split pressure, you know, pushing those gens really, really quickly is very, very efficient for any killer, regardless of how strong they are. But that's just me. So everyone knows what the nurse is capable of. Everyone knows what the spirit is capable of. This is nothing new that anyone's going to learn in this video here today, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Okay, you guys already know the story of nurse and spirit. You know, they're up there. So with that being said, we're just going to move on to the next killer. We've spoken enough about them. We're going to bring in the Blight at the S tier. Yes, the Blight. He is extremely hard to master with a mediocre level to learn. So he's like a medium level to learn, but he's very, very hard to master. But once you get there, oh my god, this killer is just so oppressive. So oppressive. His cooldown is very, very reasonable for having 5 different rush tokens. His mobility is just insane. He can move at a very, very fast speed, and unlike some of the other killers, he can literally do it the entire game from start to finish. An absolute worst case scenario, he's a 115% killer who can still walk around the map with a godly power. So very, very oppressive, and once played correctly, there's just not much you can do to stop this guy. He just is so good at pressuring the map, you know, at all times. He's not one of the killers that needs to set up a 3-gen strat. You're probably not going to make it that far. That's going to finish out our S tier rank. We're going to move on to A. We're going to start it off with the Hag. Now, the Hag has some type of mobility with her traps. Her traps have a default range of 40 meters, which is quite a bit. Of course, she has add-ons to extend that, but we're not going to pay too much attention to that. She is just very, very oppressive. She has a different playstyle than other killers, obviously. You know, she typically will lock down one section of the map and just whack anything that comes into that section with her web of traps. It is just super oppressive, but The only reason I don't put her at the S category like I've seen some people do is she does have a lot of counterplay with flashlights or survivors toying with her traps to throw her off her rhythm, or just interfere with their web. Maybe they'll sprint in, trigger a trap, and sprint out on purpose just to mess with her. So she's got a lot of trouble there, and she's really good at stalling the game. And personally, she's my least favorite killer to play because I like fast games, win or lose, and the Hag is usually not a fast game. Coming up next in the A category, we are going to have Freddy. After his recent debuff, or nerf if you want to call it that, a lot of people dropped him down really, really low. I don't think so. I think he is still a very, very good killer. He has great chase potential with his pools of blood, and he has great map pressure. He can teleport to generators, but of course, only generators that are not yet completed. So he has that ability there, and he has the semi-stealth ability. Once you're in lullaby range, if you're asleep, you can only see him intermittently for a little while, and it can be hard to distinguish which direction he's approaching you from, even if you know he's right there. So he has a lot of stuff going for him. There's just no way I can say that this debuff really, really hurt Freddy all that much. If you know what you're doing, he is still very, very oppressive, and you're going to have a hard time against any player utilizing this killer to his potential. Next, also in the A category, we are going to have the twins. There they are, the creepy little people that look like Total Recall from the old 90s movie. I don't know if any of you are old enough as me to remember it, but she's just very, very good at everything. Map pressure, I don't even have to talk about her other perks. Map pressure is enough. We can talk about Victor's tracking potential, or the speed of Victor's running around the map, but her map pressure is really enough for me to put her in this category. She can literally be in two places at once. She can down a survivor, camp Victor there, and then go as Charlotte and go defend some generators and stuff, and Victor will warn her if someone tries to come pick up the slug, and now she's pressuring almost everybody all game long, and she can just be very, very oppressive when played correctly. Some people look at it as type of a boring game style, but it is a strategy if you want to play her to her potential. So very, very good killer. She can body block hallways, windows, and things like that, so just very solid. After her, we're going to place the Huntress, also in the A tier. Most people put her a little lower. I like her in the spot where she's at. She is excellent at 4 versus 1. You can be chasing one survivor, and then bloop, here comes another survivor out of the corner of your eye. And if you're good at your flick shots, you can really catch them off guard with a cross map snipe hatchet coming out of nowhere. It's just really, really good. So she can kind of pressure people off of generators from a long distance with her hatchets. Just very, very good at map pressure and that potential. And she's a very rewarding killer to play also, which has nothing to do with her being at this tier list, but you genuinely have to outplay your opponent. You have to make the right read. Are they running straight? Are they juking left? Are they juking right? Like, those are your options when you release that hatchet. So once you get them right and you make the right reads, it's just very rewarding. But map pressure alone, very, very good killer, very solid. We're going to move on to the next killer, also in the A category. We're going to place the Oni. Now the Oni, I normally would have put higher than Huntress. However, if the person playing him is playing efficiently, then more than likely the survivors they're playing against are also playing efficiently. So his early game can hurt him quite a bit if it takes him, let's say, 2 minutes to get his first hit, or to get his first down. It could take him a while to build up that power, which is not that big of a deal for him, being as strong as he is, because once he has that power, oh my god, the snowball potential is real. Excellent mobility, he can zoom around the map, and he has a very oppressive snowball potential. So he can literally end the game in one usage of his power, which is just very, very deadly. So sometimes having a rough early game doesn't really make all that much difference. So that's all we're going to talk about with the Oni. Now we're going to move on to the next killer that we're going to place also in the A category, and it is going to be Leatherface. Now, sure, there might be some of you who are like, oh, all Leatherface does is camp in the basement with Insidious. And sure, people do that, but it's more of a meme kind of build. But trust me, he does not have to. After his rework, he is super, super strong with his charges. Super strong. What he is he's a resource eater. Just by charging up his chainsaw and following you, he will get you to drop that pallet as soon as humanly possible, I promise you. And if you don't, you're going to go down. So it's a win-win for the killer. Eat some resources now to make chases easier later, or get a free down and a free hook and move on to the next person. So very, very good. Some of his add-ons are totally busted, like Beast Marks, for example. He can use that to increase his movement speed and the range that he can start revving up his chainsaw in order to get you down or to get a pallet out of the way is just very, very impressive. So all around, just an excellent killer where he is right now. And we're going to have one more killer in this category. It's going to be Mr. Pyramid Head. And Pyramid Head, the main thing I want to talk about with him is his speed. He does everything quickly. Using his Punishment of the Damned attack, when used correctly, he can end chases faster. That's speed. He can avoid hooking people that are tormented by just caging them. That saves him a lot of time. That's speed. He can also use the Trail of Torment for tracking if he's having a hard time finding people and whatnot, and things like that. He also has the ability to just run around the map and kind of, I can't say he can pressure everyone at once, but he does have like a zoning potential. If he's following me around with Punishment of the Damned and you're trying to avoid it, he might zone you away from the tile that you're trying to go to, and now he's just got a free hit. So there's just so many different ways that he can outplay people just for being this killer and not necessarily the skill of your opponent. Coming up to the B category, we're going to start with the Vomit Comet, Miss Plague. The number one thing we can say about her is she is very good at 4 versus 1. She has a little bit of tracking with her vomit. For example, puking on 1 or 2 generators, and then, she has no action and all of a sudden a survivor becomes infected. That's like a built-in surveillance, except a much, much smaller cooldown. We can talk about her Corrupt Purge, of course, which has no collision. So it is the only ranged attack aside from Pyramid Heads that can hit multiple targets in the same attack, and there's also no collision, so that means that there's no body blocking. If you're trying to body block someone out the exit or something and she Corrupt Purges you, she's just going to hit all of you. It's really that simple. She has a massive snowball pressure. The only thing I don't like about her, why I keep her at B, is she kind of promotes split pressure. Broken survivors, or I'm sorry, healthy survivors are not going to want to come around broken survivors, and vice versa. Next up, we're going to have the Wraith. And sure, he just got buffed, but in my own opinion, I think he was stronger before his recent rework. The old Wraith was kind of Windstorm reliant. That was the problem people had with him, is he was add-on reliant. Okay, now, yeah, they gave him a built-in Windstorm by increasing his movement speed to 150% when cloaked, which is a massive upgrade from his previous number. But they also took away his uncloak range. So he kind of went from being Windstorm reliant to being Swift Hunt reliant. So either way, I suppose it's just a matter of opinion, but to me, he was stronger before. So his stealth ability is really, really good, and his speed allows him to run around the map and pressure lots of people all at once. So he has a unpredictability side to him that survivors have to account for when they're playing against him. And now we're going to move on to our next killer, who is going to be the Doctor. So the Doctor, of course, everyone already knows about his tracking, but that's not why I put him here. The B category is killers that I consider good, but have reasonable counterplay where they can still lose. His chase potential is what makes him really great. People don't understand how much power the Doctor has. He has a built-in Deer Stalker. He has a built-in Franklin's Demise, as long as people are in Tier 3. So there's just so many different things he can do. And he has anti-chase skill. He can literally prevent actions. So he can camp a hook and prevent the unhook. He can literally force you off of gens, prevent heals, stop you from using dead hard, stop you from jumping through a hatch. He can do all of that. The Doctor is just a very, very solid killer all around. He's probably the only killer that has his power do too many different things, but that doesn't mean I think he's too strong. It just, literally what I said, it does too many different things. So, very solid killer. Next up, we got the Deathslinger. So Deathslinger, is very, very good at one thing and one thing only, and that's a 1 versus 1 chase. That's it. That's the only reason I don't put him higher. I'm not saying he's a bad killer. I'm just saying that's the only thing he's good at. If you want to use a killer to their maximum potential, you have to utilize what they're good at to the maximum potential that you can. So ending chases quickly with Deathslinger. That's how you play him. He does have a smaller terror radius than normal killers, so that helps him a lot. But his big weakness is he's not very mobile. So the same could be said for every other killer, but split pressure is, I would say, a little more detrimental against a Deathslinger than it is against other killers that have mobility to kind of move around the map and force people off of generators and such. So that's why he's hurting here, and the only reason I do not put him any higher. So finishing off the Deathslinger, we're going to move on to our next killer, which will probably get me some heat from you guys, but it's going to be the Trickster. Now understand that this is based off of the patch that is currently being promoted in the PTB right now, where it requires 6 knives to down a survivor rather than 8. So he is very similar to the Trickster, or I'm sorry, the Deathslinger, in the fact that he has almost no map pressure at all, and he has 1 versus 1 chase potential only. So if he is so similar to the Deathslinger, why do I put him underneath the Deathslinger? What's the big comparison between the two? The Deathslinger can afford to swap targets in mid-chase. He deals a single slate of damage. The Trickster, however, cannot do that. If you're tossing knives at a person, let's say you put 5 knives in them, or 4 knives in them, whatever it may be, and that survivor leads you to another survivor working on a generator. A good killer's priority is always going to be protect the generator. But guess what? If you just stop and you go pressure the other survivor now, the laceration on your previous survivor is just going to go away and you lose all that momentum. Coming into the C category now, we're going to start with the Nemesis. The Nemesis, to me, is probably the most fair killer that has come out before having any changes done to him. So he is good, he is strong, but he also has reasonable counterplay. He, in my opinion, is the perfectly balanced killer at this moment. So I think they did a really, really good job with him. The things I can say about him is his zombies are kind of RNG. His ranged attacks are basically free at some pallets if he's patient enough, or at windows, obviously. But he really doesn't have anything unique about him. He just kind of has like watered down powers from other killers if you really think about it. So, but strength wise, I give him a solid C. He's just your average killer that's gonna win 50% of the time and lose 50% of the time, in my opinion. And maybe you disagree, but that's my current stance on him. After him, we're gonna have Mr. Billy, who is very, very similar in that regard, with the exception that Billy has extremely high mobility. He can zoom around the map with his chainsaw sprint, of course, and use that power to insta-down people. So the problem with that is he has a lot of counterplay, mainly windows, which is why Bamboozle is such a popular perk on people playing as this killer at high level, to take away that window option. And forced pallet drops a little bit earlier. So problem with Billy is Billy has to outplay you the entirety of the game. So if he makes a mistake and you play perfect, you have the advantage. If you both play perfect, you as a survivor still have the advantage. So it kind of comes down to that. That's the only reason I keep him at C. And it kind of feels bad because he was an easy A just a couple years ago. But that's all we're going to say about Mr. Billy. I love you, Billy. Sorry, buddy. We're going to move on to the next killer, Mr. Demigorgon from the Stranger Things chapter. His mobility is okay. The only reason I say it's okay is because there is no recycling of his portals. If you end up placing all of your portals and the survivors decide to not destroy them, and let's say they pop, they're all your all your portals are by generators, but those generators are already completed, then those portals are basically useless to you for the rest of the match. So that's why his mobility to me is kind of you know what I mean? The one great thing about him is his shred attack, which allows him to get hits at certain loop tiles that other killers just can't do, with his ranged attack. So that's a very, very good thing that he has going. So again, he's a C tier killer for me. Those are killers that I believe are not too strong, not too weak. They're just right. They're perfect. These are killers that survivors aren't going to complain about facing, and killers might have a slightly tough time winning matches with. Moving on to the next killer, we're going to have Ghostface. Ghostface to me is the king of stealth. Better than the Wraith, yes, in my own opinion. He does make some wonky sound effects when he's in stealth mode, so you can hear him when he's approaching. But the reason why I like him is he has no stalk limit, and he can swap targets on a dime. He can chase one target, enter stealth mode, stalk one survivor across the map for a little bit, then keep going after the other survivor, and 99ing the stalk, as we call it. And it allows him so much pressure so fast. It is just very, very good. His downfalls, why I have him so low, is he is add-on reliant because his recovery time for his power is just too long, and his mechanics. Mechanically, he's a little bit broken. Sometimes he gets revealed when he shouldn't, and sometimes you cannot reveal him when you should be able to. So just those two reasons alone, being a little bit add-on reliant and his mechanics put him at C category for me. Pretty fair killer in general. After him, we're going to have the Pig. The Pig has one attack only, called the ambush attack, that she can use at chases. The problem with that is it can force survivors, as soon as they see her crouch and they think she can ambush, they're probably going to leave the tile. But that could be a good thing, because maybe you can catch back up to them before they reach it to the next tile. So who knows? Then, of course, she has her reverse bear traps, which is basically a built-in game staller to slow the game down just a little bit. And the problem with those is they are very RNG based. So you could put a trap on a survivor, they get unhooked, and there's a box 10 meters away, and next thing you know, 18 seconds up when they get off the hook, they already have their trap off. So that's kind of her big downfall there. She basically comes down to a standard 115 killer that has a little bit of slow down game. It just kind of depends on how RNG wants to treat you. Moving on to the next killer, we're entering the D category now. We're going to start with the original Stalky Boy, Michael Myers. He did it first, but I think Ghostface does it best. Michael Myers does have a stalk limit, and he stalks faster the closer he is to the survivor, where Ghostface kind of stalks at one speed regardless of the distance between him and the survivor. The one good thing about Myers, though, is his smaller terror radius that helps him out with his stealth. That does not require a cooldown ability at all. It allows him to get hits early before the chase even starts, so that's kind of his chase potential, getting those hits before the chase even starts. Some of his add-ons are obviously the most broken ones in the game, and his stalk limit really, really does hurt him. If he could stalk one person completely, but somebody else dies early in the trial, so now he only has 2 other survivors he can stalk. So his power is just a little outdated for today's version of Dead by Daylight. Nothing personal against him. Moving on up, we're going to have next is the Legion. And the Legion is probably a favorite of the mid to low rank killer players, because the Legion is very good at one thing: tracking. And you know how low rank survivors play, they kind of hide all game, right? So the Legion is very strong against them, because they're going to spend the entire game injured and healing and not doing generators at all. So he's really, really good at tracking. He has a really, really good job with map pressure and slowdown. But the problem is that he is dangerous in that regard, but not deadly. If everyone's already injured, he doesn't really have a reason to use his Feral Frenzy, which makes him a basic M1 killer with, no stealth factor or anything like that. So that really hurts the Legion, the poor guy, but he is a whole lot of fun to play, so we have to put him this low because his power is just way too easily countered. So that's all we're going to say about Mr. Legion. We're going to move on to the next killer, which is going to be the Trapper, Mr. Chuckles. The Trapper has one good advantage, is he's unpredictable. You never know what route you should be taking. You know, obviously you want to try to stay away from deep grass, you know, to make sure you don't run into a trap, but you don't always have that option. Sometimes you just have to hope and pray, oh god, I hope there's not a trap here. But that's the one good thing about him. He is very heavily punished with RNG. You know, he has traps split all over the map, and you have to go very out of your way to go pick them up, and you don't even want to be in that part of the map. So it kind of really hurts his mobility, because not only is he just a 115 killer with no mobility, he also has to go out of his way to go pick up traps, you know, in the middle of nowhere most of the time. So that really hurts him, but he does have a good snowball potential. You know, the right traps in the right places at the right time can win a game in a matter of seconds. So that's why I'm not putting him dead last. That we're leaving for this guy, Mr. Clown. A lot of people disagree with me because they look at the Clown as strong. Those people are probably survivor mains who think that killers that do good in chase are strong, which to an extent can be true. The Clown is very good at 1 versus 1 chases, very good, but he has a lot of downsides, no mobility being one of them. Sure, he has the yellow antidote bottles now. He can throw those, get a movement speed boost, and now he can move a little bit faster. But guess what? He only starts with 4 bottles. So you can't use all your bottles for mobility, then enter a chase and have no bottles left. Now you have to let the survivor have a 3-second head start so you can reload your bottles. His power is just very underwhelming to deal with today's version of what Dead by Daylight is. So that's going to be my killer tier list. I hope you guys like it, and if you disagree with something, please let me know why in the comments below. I'll see you guys next time.